Hello friends, I am Ardhendu De and you are watching Eddie's English Literature. Today we will look at a few novels that were either written about the Industrial Revolution or discuss the flights of working class men. But first, what is an industrial age as well as the genre of industrial novel? In simple words, the Industrial Revolution was a period of rapid industrialization with the discovery of science, with the discovery of innovation that took place in Europe and North America, particularly in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and which was later continued till the World War II. It was characterized by the development of new technologies, the steam engine and the power loom started. It led to the mechanization of many industries and mass productions of goods started. The machine started mass production and labor became more skilled. So it was the very structural revolution. The Industrial Revolution also brought about significant social and economic changes. New cities sprang up, there is the rise of factories and the transformation of the labor environment. It had a profound impact on the ways of the people that lived at that time and worked and laid the foundations for the modern industrialized world. And that change, that mammoth change, made an impact in literature too. Industrial novels are a subgenre of literature that focus particularly the lives and experiences of the people who directly or indirectly work in the industrial settings, either in factories, mills, mines, and it all started with the industrial flourishes each and every major cities in Europe. In fact, there are many novels that were set during the early Industrial Revolution, which took place, that I have told you, in Europe and in North America particularly, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries and continued till to the 20th centuries. However, I have extended the time frame to the later industrial revolutions and the early 20th century too. My personal favorite lists are many of the novels that I find very interesting. First of all, Charles Dickens' Hard Times and The Old Curiosity Shop. These two famous novels by Charles Dickens is set on industrial settings, and I will mention them and carry a discussion on them. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell. These are the two novels that I will carry a discussion on them. The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropists by Robert Tressell is another novel that I will carry a discussion. Apart from English, there is Émile Zola's Germinal that need a focus in here in the discussion. I am going to highlight key features of these novels and chalk out the industrial era. Obviously, there is George Eliot's The Mill on the Floss and Love on the Dole by Walter Greenwood, and notably The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck and the last one, The Jungle by Upton, Sinclair. So these are the 10 novels that I will carry out a discussion here, but the list is not conclusive as you find it, but I am trying to cover up all the industrial journey or industrial revolution journey started from late 18th to up to the Second World War. In our discussions of these two novels, particularly first of all Charles Dickens' Hard Times and the Old Curiosity Shop, there is the plenty of understanding or clarification there. Through his fictions, Dickens did much to highlight the worst abuses of the 19th century society and to prick the public conscience, But running through the main plot of the novels are a host of subplots concerning fascinating and sometimes ludicrous minor characters are there. And interestingly, in Charles Dickens' novels, you will find out a panorama of the society. But one caution, that you cannot find out Charles Dickens' views as being parallel to the views of the characters. Much of the humors of these particular novels derives from Dickens' descriptions of these minor characters you will find, and from his ability to capture their speech, mannerisms and idiosyncratic traits. So these are the facts by which we can judge Charles Dickens' novels. First of all, Hard Times by Charles Dickens. It was published in 1854, the fictional town of Coketown. This novel particularly explores the social and economic changes that brought about by the Industrial Revolution, as well as here is the theme of education, here is the theme of fancy, imagination, love. One of Charles Dickens' few novels not set in London, this particular novel was published in 1854 when the entire England is so robust in the industrial ideologies. So this particular novel is a pen portrait of the industry of the mid-19th century England. Dickens here comments on the harsh regime and mechanical routine that are forcing the human being or the particular laborers or the simple social people, and they are living in an insipid, lifeless manners. The main characters of this novel include Thomas Gradgrind, a wealthy and influential industrialist, and his children Tom and Louisa, who are raised according to the Gradgrind's strict and utilitarian philosophy. Now, the fancy, imagination, beauty, aesthetic concepts are dead. Thomas Gradgrind is a pragmatic man, Fact is everything to him, and he raises his children, Louisa and Tom, to think logically. As to him, a reasoning mind is far preferable to an inventive, spontaneous imagination, fancy or such things. The numbing, dehumanizing effect of the machinery is ruining the vitality of life. And Dickens' technique of reducing individual man, individual human being, who are often portrayed here as almost robotic, to numbers, tending to machines. This excerpt is a wide description of the settings of Coketown. Dickens also highlights the smug hypocrisy characteristic of the Victorian time, Victorian middle class, when regarding the workers. C.C. Jew is the member of circus, very contrast to that. And This particular novel, Hard Times, typically depicts the hard times of the people. The education, the imagination, the love, everything is here devoid of fancy, devoid of any human feelings. Here is the stupidity, here is the kind of a total waste. The tragic figure is obviously Stephen Blackpool and Loisa. They are the receiving end of this kind of drab education. And Hard Times obviously is very hard, and it makes us realistic observation of the time. The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens, which was published in serialized way, and finally it was published in 1841. This novel tells the sorry story of little Nell, a young girl who is forced to flee London with her grandfather, a proprietor of a mysterious, very mysterious shop filled with strange and wonderful objects. As they journey through the countryside, they encounter a variety of colorful characters, including the greedy and cruel dwarf. And here the Quilp and the kind and generous Dick Swiveller. These two characters is very contrast to the other drab characters. The novel is notable for its evocative portrayal of the landscape and people of the rural England, as well as it has the themes of love, loss, and redemption, and it is all set in the backdrop of industrial world. In Mary Barton, A Tale of Manchester Light, Elizabeth Gaskell examined the tug of war between rich and poor in industrial Manchester, England, and it all happens in 1840s. The novel deftly weaves character development and evocative details with social criticism. Mill workers like John Barton, who is in fact the father of the heroine, and George Wilson try to relieve the suffering of a dying improvised weaver named Davenport. Wilson appeals to the wealthy mill owner for help. This particular scene vividly contrasts the luxurious life of the masters with the desperate poverty of the workers. So these are all the realistic descriptions of the Manchester. In fact, this novel was set in Manchester, and Mary Barton, a young woman who is being caught up in the struggles of the working class during the Industrial Revolution. And here, the murder of Mary's father, a union leader, and the ensuing investigation, which reveals the harsh realities or the realistic life of the working poor in Manchester, are the very pivotal point of this book. Mary's devoted suitor, James Wilson, and the wealthy industrialist Mr. Carson are just two of the novel's memorable characters that we will find here. This particular novel also touches on themes of the very other side of the parallel aspects of Victorian society, that is love, family, and social justice. Elizabeth Gaskell's another novel, North and South, which was published in 1855, is a beautiful novel on industrial setting. Margaret Hale, a young woman from the south of England who relocates to the industrial north with her family is the very subject of this particular novel. And here is another sympathetic examination of the conditions of the working class in Manchester. Although Margaret initially despises the gritty, filthy town of Milton, she eventually learns to appreciate and emphasize with the plight of the local factory workers. This particular novel examines issues of social justice, class conflict like his other novels, and it also clarifies a feministic outlook, the women's position. It has also run through a complicated love story and the troubled past of the heroine and the dashing industrialist John Thornton's life is also being referred here. The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropists by Robert Tressell, which was published in 1914. Robert Noonan, an Irish house painter, wrote this semi-autobiographical book. This book, which takes place in the fictional town of Mugsborough, chronicles the very struggles of a group of working class men as they attempt to live in a society which is being torn, dejected as well as bifurcated by injustice, by poverty. Frank Wayne, a painter and decorator who is dissatisfied with the circumstances of his life and the very lack of opportunities for social and economic forwardness or a kind of advancement, is the very hero of this particular novel. The novel is notable for portraying the daily struggles and lives of working people, as well as for addressing social justice issues and the very part of education, what sort of education or what is the right class of education or what is the right type of education apart from these utilitarian philosophies are being discussed here. The struggles and lives of the working forces, the industrial setting, and the very drab surroundings of insipid people are the very subject matter of this novel. And this novel can be taken as a classical example, even though the setting is towards the early 20th century. Now the construction company, the low pay, long hours, hazardous circumstances, and the most important, that no humane approach is there. So these are the critical point, these are the criticism point. The social commentary on the industrialist and capitalist systems and the very exploitations of the workers. These are the pivotal points that has been highlighted in this novel, and the Marxist theorem or the Marxist ideologies of the working class are being slightly paralleled here. You have seen that I have included Germinal by Émile Zola, which was published in 1885, a French novel, in the list. But why so? Because it is so important while discussing the industrial novels. The ideologies, the socialist ideologies are being here. The author Émile Zola, who is a great French writer, has produced these great French masterpieces, and it is being widely regarded as such. Zola is an exponent of the school of naturalism, and here human behavior, their instinct their social environment is all being comparatively discussed here. This particular novel describes the struggles and lives of the miners in the coal mine in 19th century France. The perilous and difficult working conditions and inhuman approach of the masters towards their workers, and how these miners are constantly battling to improve their conditions, improve their living style, as well as how they are compassionately attached to each other as a workers is all being shown here. Now, the capitalist system and the worker exploitation is being criticized robustly, or rather poignantly, by Zola. And these social criticisms are the very basis of the struggles of working force or their identities or their rights. The Émile on the Floss by George Eliot is set in a mill in 19th century England and follows the life of the protagonist Maggie Tulliver as she navigates the challenges and struggles of being a working class woman in the industrial setting. So the character, the heroine, is being trapped in the industrial drab surroundings. The solidarity, the community feeling, and how the Maggie and the other workers are getting a kind of comradeship and supporting each other, and how they fight against their oppressors, obviously the masters, and oppressive situations is being depicted here in very minute details. Now, the industrialization has its very bad effects not only in the industrial settings or in the towns, but it also impacted the way of life in countryside. The heroine, the idealistic, intellectual, passionate Maggie Tulliver, resembles Eliot herself as a young woman. Both experiences a kind of difficulty expressing themselves in college social environment, and both face painful decisions in love. Marked by a kind of vain or a disguised humor or sadness, the novel goes to analyze the full scope of Maggie's imperfect humanity while presenting a sharp yet understanding view of the society. Love on the Dole by Walter Greenwood, which was published in 1932. This novel is set in Manchester, and it was in 1930s. The working class characters are the main figures in this novel. They are like usual other novels. They are in the economic crisis and they are struggling very hard to survive amid this crisis. The solidarity, the community, the friendship, the comradeship is there, and while they are supporting each other, and while they are supporting in each other's cause as workers, how they are embattling their battles against the masters are the very common theme here discussed. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, which was published in 1939, is a kind of American realistic novel, and it was published in 1939. The novel is set in the backdrop of Great Depression and follows the journey of the Joad family who are forced to leave their farm and search for work in California. This particular novel portrays the struggle or the struggle for existence precisely in such a condition when they are leaving the agriculture for the sake of industry, but industrial environment is not providing them the full security. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, which was published in 1906, is set in Chicago, and here how the migrant workers are struggling here in this butchery shop is being depicted here. Sinclair has depicted the heroes or the characters of this working force as the victim or getting injustices. Now this meatpacking industry where it was set, here the author has highlighted that a kind of a reform is needed, and for this appeal some of the laws were being changed in America, and the mistreatment of the workers in these industrial settings are being highlighted, and the novel has a lasting effect on social reforms in America. So these are the books that you must follow while understanding this kind of industrial novels. Reading these all novels, you can get a kind of common features surmounting all these novels, and we can readily conclude a few of the lines that has been common in all of these novels. Now, first of all, there is a realistic description of the industrial workforces. Industrial novels, often portray the harsh realities of industrial workers, industrial workforces, including the hours, degenerating conditions, their low pay, and even their social exploitations. Number two is the social commentary. Many industrial novelists have made certain social commentary which dragged the social panorama into revisit their theories, revisit their concepts. So in some cases new laws were passed, the system was checked. So it's a constant evolutionary process that has made this possible by these industrial novelists. Now working class protagonists are there in all of the books, and they are at the suffering end. They are struggling to survive. They are struggling for a living, to improve their circumstances in this kind of industrial drab settings. Now these type of novels also find out a way how to fight, how to struggle against these oppressions. And here the oppressive forces, oppressive conditions are being depicted, and how the workers are facing them, making a way how to become the outside of the pool of poverty, discrimination, exploitations is the main motives of these type of novels. And notably, one point, there is solidarity and community feelings that are being expressed from the Marxist view and other left-wing views. The workers and the working hours are being depicted, and how they are wrongs, and what are the human rights, and all those things pop up into the new way of criticism and criticizing the capitalist world. Now, we must say that this type of industrial novels, this industrial revolution, or the economic effects of this industrialization, the transformation of the rural communities, how are they rapidly changing, how new urban centers are being built up, and how many of the social organizations are needed to check the conditions of the workforces, are being highlighted in this type of novels, and new outlook has been formed. So in industrial novels, or the kind of writing which I have discussed in 10 novels, or there are plenty of such novels which are depicting more or less the same themes, are very important for understanding the very literatures, for the very impact of these literatures on social purview, in social upgradations, in social reforms. And these novels are written with a purpose, and that purpose is often realistic than artistic. Even though a few of the novels are colored too much, even some of the novels are mere propaganda, or in some of the novels are not realistic, even they have served a simple purpose, showing the society they are living and finding out the wrongs in the society they are struggling to survive. So I think this little bit of lecture will definitely profit you in understanding industrial novels and the type. You can pop up here and ask me questions regarding this. I will try my best to give some possible answer regarding this. Bye bye. Thank you.